In this video, we're going to walk through building a really good bait tank based on a 50-pound Vittles Vault, which is a pet food container. Holds about 12 gallons of water, which amounts to about 100 pounds of water, which is a great size for what is called here in San Diego a kayak scoop, or half a kayak scoop. So we'll go through adding an outlet, which is that larger hose up at the top, coming out of the top of the tank. An outlet hose has an inlet tube and fitting, which is at the bottom of the tank with a strain relief right above it. And then that hose would go to the transom and connect up to a pump mounted on the transom. This pump and the transom bracket are intended for a Scout inflatable boat. If you have a different boat, we'd have to see if I can come up with, if this would fit, or if I can come up with a transom bracket that will fit. And then a battery for it. A very good battery fits in that little orange box I've got there, but other boxes can be used. And my website will detail other battery options that are available. In the description, I'll provide links to a written description on this, and also a link to where you can buy the various components that I'll be using during the assembly, and I'll also list which tools are needed. So with that, let's get on with the build. In this video, we're going to build a bait tank out of a Vittles 50-pound Vault, a pet food storage container. These make wonderful bait tanks. They hold about 12 gallons of water. It's about 100 pounds. They'll hold what's called a kayak scoop here in San Diego bait, or you can split a kayak scoop between two fishermen with these tanks. This is intended for the do-it-yourselfer who is going to build it up either out of components that they purchase from me or components from the internet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install an outlet hose for the outlet water to flow over the side, an outlet fitting to accept that hose, an inlet fitting to accept water coming in from the pump. I'm going to put on a pair of what are called kayak handles on the sides to make it a little easier to carry. I'm going to put a pair of rod holders on it just for rod storage. So we'll get started. So here's what we're going to need to install the outlet fitting. You need the outlet fitting kit, which is these parts plus the hose already mounted on a hose barb, ready to plug into the outlet. You'll need for tools an electric drill, an 1/8" drill bit, a 1/4" drill bit, a step drill with a 1 1/8" size on it, a screwdriver, a Sharpie, and this little gadget, which is a hole locator, which I provide with the kit. To find the corner of the hole. And you'll need silicone. This is the large industrial size. You can get a small tube of silicone for about $5 at Home Depot, which is enough to do everything we're going to be doing here on the bait tank today. So I'm going to take this stuff aside and get started actually putting the outlet fitting onto the tank. The first step here is to determine where you're going to put the outlet fitting. You'll notice this tank has corners, 4 corners. 2 of them on opposite sides are smooth, and 2 of them have seams, and we don't need this anymore. And we don't need the lid. Now, put that aside. Okay, so 2 of them have a seam. You want to put the fittings on the sides that are smooth. Now I put the outlet fitting up here, I put the inlet fitting down here. I put the inlet down low so that when it comes time to drain the tank, it can drain by siphon action, and I'll explain that later. But for now, the outlet fitting is going to be about up in here. Now you want to leave room at the top for water to slosh around and not slosh out of the tank, because mostly people don't use the lid. You can put the lid on. Also, the water will be a little bit above the outlet fitting because it has to build a head to get enough water flow to match what the pump is pumping in. And so you'll see there's a horizontal seam line here that probably doesn't show up on the video, but you'll see it in person. And I put the outlet fitting about 1 1/4" below that. Now, because of the soft edges, it's really difficult to find the center line here. And that's where this tool comes in. It reaches around the sides, and you press on it, and it's got a hole in it, and that will help you locate the center. I'm going to go ahead and position this hole and drill a pilot hole using the 1/8" drill bit where I want the thing to go. So as I said, I want it to be about 1.25 inches below the below that seam line, and I'm going to try to make sure this hole is lined up exactly in the middle. Okay, so now I've got my pilot hole located and ready to go. So I'm done with this piece for now. The next thing I'm going to do is enlarge that pilot hole to 1/4 inch so that I can get the step drill going into it. Whenever I'm drilling on this, I like to drill straight down because gravity tends to pull the drill down and move that hole. I don't want that to happen. Okay, so there's, now I've got a big enough hole to get the step drill going. So next I pull my step drill. I'm going to step drill this out to 1 1/8 inches. We have a part in here which is the drill guide. It's got 8 holes. It has a flange on the back. That flange is 1 1/8, and it's going to register in the hole we're making. So you take the step drill in one step at a time until this just goes in. You do not want to overshoot and get that hole too big. It'll ruin the tank. Okay, so now I'm just going to, again, I'm going to do it vertically, and we'll start and get some holes made. I got a little bit close, so now I'm going to grab my hole drill guide, the thing with the flange on it with the 8 blank holes. No, I can go at least another one. So we'll go another one. Probably going to be one more after this. Yeah. It's not quite right. As you drill, you build up some flashing inside this stuff, and I want to take that off. Take it off. You bring your step drill in from the back side, and just very lightly. It doesn't take hardly any press at all. You do not want to make a bigger hole out of this. You can just cut off that back side, and now you can get a more accurate check to see if we're there yet on our hole size. And we're not. We're one step short. Okay, again, I'm going to bevel the backside just a touch. So it's nice and smooth on the inside too. And that should be just right for our guide. And it is. It just presses into place. Now what I'm going to do is line this up so that these 8 holes are horizontal and vertical. So they're well within this boundary here. I'm going to go back to my 1/8 inch drill, and I'm going to first drill out one. I'm going to drop a screw in to help locate it so it doesn't move. Drill another one, put another screw on, and then I can drill all the rest of the holes. So I've zoomed in on the drill fixture, the template here. And so what I'm doing is I'm getting these 2 holes so they're horizontal, these 2 holes so they're vertical. And now what I'm going to do is drill one of the holes. Any hole, doesn't matter which one. So I got it up here so I can hold it steady. Okay, so that's hole number 1. In your kit, these are M3 screws that I use on this. In your kit, there are also a few nuts to be used just for this purpose. But you don't really need the nuts. But I'm going to go ahead and put it on. Now I'll drill a hole just opposite it. Do the same thing. I'll put in a screw with a nut on it just to make sure everything stays in place. Okay, now I've got this thing located. I know 2 of the holes are aligned. Now I can just drill out the next 6 holes. Okay, so all of our holes are drilled. I'm going to remove the fixture, and we're done with the little drill template. Okay, now we need to clean up the holes just a little bit. You can feel little slight ridges on these holes, on the front and on the back. So if you just get your 1/4 inch drill bit And just kind of lightly spin it on each hole a couple of turns. That will clean up the flashing. You want a smooth surface to help them get in a good tight water seal. Okay, now the edges are perfectly clean and we're ready to actually start to assemble this for real. So the actual fitting that you're going to install now is two pieces. One piece has a big thread on it, and the actual hose with its hose barb screws into this. This goes on the outside. The other piece has 8 nuts, and it goes on the inside. It's just a nut plate holder that's holding all the plates properly and located and provides a surface for silicone to seal against. So we're going to goop this up with silicone. We're going to put it on and just install the screw. Silicone is really messy, so I tend to use vinyl gloves on this and keep paper towels handy. So I'm going to put a coating of silicone on this face. It's the face with the holes, not with the nuts. Again, this is the piece that holds the nuts that goes on the inside. I'm just going to smear a layer on here. I end up using too much silicone, but then I just wipe it down, or the stuff that squeezes out, I wipe it down with paper towels, and that gets that working right. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to run silicone just around the face that goes against the tank. Okay. So there we've got it. And I'm going to insert one screw, line that up with a screw hole, press it into place, get my nut carrier lined up, and a screwdriver ready to engage that screw. Getting the first one started is always fun. Oh, maybe I got it. And I'm going to put in the rest of the screws. Okay, now they're all down. I'm just going to run around and give each one extra twist to make sure they're all pretty evenly tightened. As should happen, silicone has squirted out around the edges. That means we've got it everywhere and got a good seal. And this inside edge, get that cleaned up. And then inside the tank, around the outside of that nut plate and on the inside. And that's really it. The outlet fitting is installed. Now the outlet tube, again, this is designed for a inflatable, something like a Scout inflatable, where the tank is pretty close to the pontoon. So this is going to go in here and hang over the edge. So this has an O-ring. This is a modified, it's a standard hose bar, but I modified it, put a groove in it to hold an O-ring to form a seal. And that way you can just, when you get to where you're fishing, you can just screw this in. When you're done, you can unscrew it and store it in the tank. And it makes the whole tank easier to store. And that's it. You don't have to over tighten it, just get it snug. And it's ready to go. There is one last piece in your kit, and it's this grate. And it actually has a thread on it. It's kind of like a pickle jar lid. And there's a thread on the inside on the fitting. And the grate is to keep bait from swimming out. You'll actually get a couple of them. There's this size, which works well for coastal bait like sardines and so forth. If you're fishing minnows, there's a smaller one with a smaller pattern on it that you can put in. And so these just go on and sits on the inside, a little quarter turn, and it's snugged into place. And that's all that's required to put this on or take it off. So the next thing we're going to install is the inlet tube, the inlet fitting. This is the piece that goes inside the tank, and water will come in here. This goes in the corner. And then there's an angled channel here to get water flow directed so that it rotates the water in the tank. You can put it in so that this is on this side or that side. One will make for clockwise rotation, one for counterclockwise. I can find no indication of whether one is better than the other, so it doesn't matter. This is the hose barb, which will be used for the 3/4 inch hose that goes from the pump to the tank. You'll notice that I took off the barbs because it's a tight fit. And that's what we want, a good tight fit. The way this works is This is a nut to lock everything down. So you spin that on pretty much as far as you can get it. Okay, this is going to go on the inside, and then we're going to screw this in through a hole we're going to make in the wall. There'll be a washer here, and so this nut will then be run down against the fitting in the tank to secure everything. We don't want this guy to rotate and come loose, which it can with the hose coming up, pulling on it one way or another. So this is a strain relief that will go just above it and will be used to keep the hose going straight into it, and so that any movement of the hose can't try to work this guy loose. So as before, we're going to start with locating a hole and putting on, drilling a hole with the step drill. So to locate the hole, I want it to be as low as I can get it on this face to get it away from this so that when the hose comes up, it doesn't interfere with your outlet hose. There's a slight seam here going around, and this is the rubber washer. So I take the rubber washer and put it so maybe it's overlapping the seam just a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch or something like that, and make a line. That's kind of the elevation I want this thing to be. Okay, then I come back in with my hole locating widget, which was in your kit, and put it so that you're approximately on top of that line. Press down on it, and once again, just make an 1/8 inch pilot hole. Okay, so there's our starting hole for the inlet fitting. Now I'm going to enlarge that to 1/4 of an inch, and then we're going to use the step drill to take it out. This one only goes to 1 inch, not to 1 1/8 inch. This is the 1/4 inch drill, and I just enlarged the hole for the outlet. Now we'll take this guy, okay, so I'm going to use this as my check. Not quite big enough. I think I got one more step to go. Okay, I'm there. Once again, I have the flashing that I had before. So I'm going to come in from the inside and just kiss it. Okay, and that's all there is here. So now all we have to do is install the actual inlet fitting. So this is the hose barb, and that's the nut. The nut has a very smooth side and a side that's just a tiny bit rough. The smooth side is what wants to go against the tank. So you screw that on pretty much all the way. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of silicone around that. Just get one layer there. And then I'm going to lay on the rubber washer, kind of push it down into place. And I'm going to put another little thin layer of silicone on that. Okay, that should be enough to guarantee our seal. Okay, so now this guy goes inside, located at the hole. Get the threads lined up, screw this down. What you'll find out is it bottoms before everything's tight, and that's actually pointed the wrong way. So I'm going to just turn it that way because this gets us closer to being vertical. Then I'm going to back that off to where this inside is horizontal and that's vertical. And then I'm going to bring the nut in itself. And I actually want that guy, make sure it stays pointed straight up. And I'm going to run this nut down, hand tight. And now I'm going to resort to the glove because I can feel silicone getting on my hand down there. Okay, so I'm going to continue to tighten the nut. It doesn't have to be super tight. The silicone will set up and keep things pretty well locked down. Now I actually don't make this perfectly vertical. I angle it just a little bit one way or the other so that the hose wants to come up the side. And then what we'll do is we'll install the strain relief just above that, and that will guide the hose a little bit off to the side of the outlet hose that's sitting up here. So the next step is to clean up the silicone and then put the outlet fitting on. When the strain relief comes to you, it's got a couple of screws already installed. You want to take those out. Okay, and then there's a piece that's wedged in here, which is the keeper. And to get it out, you loosen this guy a little bit and rotate this screw off to the side. So you got to loosen it enough to rotate it, but don't loosen it too much or it'll come out. You rotate that, and now you can just take this guy out because we needed access to these holes. Now what we're going to do is locate this using the 1/8 inch bit to drill a hole right through where the nut is too. And you can't use a larger bit because you'll damage the nut. These have embedded nuts inside for those 2 screws I just took out. So I'll get set up and we'll drill the hole for the first one of these guys. So what I want to do is put this guy maybe 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 inches away. It wants to be away from the outlet fitting, so there's room for the hose to bend away from the outlet. And we're going to line these 2 holes up with the fitting. And again, I've located this guy just a little bit, pointing off to the side, and then I can just go down through one of the holes here and drill an 1/8 inch hole. Okay. Now to secure that, I need a larger hole because the 1/8 inch isn't big enough for the size 8 screws. So I'm going to drill that out with a 3/16. And I'm going to pick up one of the screws I took out and screw down the strain relief. Alright, didn't have to get it super tight. It's all going to come apart again anyway, so we can put silicone on it and redo it. Now what I'm going to do is make sure I'm lined up again this way and go back to the 1/8 inch drill bit. Now pick up the 3/16 bit and rotate this guy out of the way and take that 1/8 inch hole and enlarge it to 3/16. So all I have to do now is take this back apart and put in the silicone and put it back together, and we're done. The seal on this one will be formed on the outside. I'm going to silicone this face up. And we're squeezing silicone out all around it, which is just what I want to see. That we really got it good seal all the way around. Paper towel and clean up the excess silicone. And that is the end. So lastly, we need to go ahead and put the inlet hose on. This is 3/4 inch tubing. There's a link in the description. It goes on the hose barb, and there is a hose clamp in your kit to secure it. So it's going to go right on here, but it's also going to get silicone put onto the fitting here. This stays permanently attached to the tank. You don't take this on and off as you move the tank. You just take your hose and pull it over and put it inside the tank when you want to transport. So now I'm going to goop this up, and then we'll put the hose on. Now even with the barbs cut off, this is not such an easy thing to put on. Oh, actually, it was perfectly easy. So I need to get some excess silicone off of there before I go very far. Now bring the hose clamp up. Okay, so it's got a tab and it's got a piece with a slot. You drop the tab in there, bring it around the hose, and bring the screw up. You may have to loosen the screw a little bit. And this doesn't have to be super tight, just enough to keep things from moving around. And there, yeah, that feels good. There is one completed tank. As I say, this will get stored in here. When you're moving the tank, it'll get cut to length when you put it on your boat. And then having it all together with the outlet hose. And you can see we did leave enough room for this inlet hose to come up on either side of this hose, depending on how your boat's set up and which side you need it to be on. But this is going to head towards, if it's using my pump, it'll head towards the stern and the transom pump to bring water into the tank. So the next step on this is to install the handles. These are the handles, and there's a link in the description. They want to go up really high, and you'll see there's a ridge coming across here, a flat area above their indented handle and below that slope. And that's where you want to put this. And so the handle screws are going to go in so that the handle's located about like that. Okay. So there are 2 holes already started in these that you can see. And we're going to use the 3/16 inch drill, drill a hole at each end, put in screws, and then drill the other 2 holes. Now you can find these handles with 1 screw or 2. I prefer 2 because it just seems like it's more secure. The kit will have all the nuts and screws and washers that you need to do this installation. Okay, so I'm going to locate this guy kind of up near this top ridge and lined up with this outside edge, and then drill a hole through the fitting right into the tank. And in the kit, you've got a bunch of screws and nuts. This is up above the water line, so you don't really have to worry about silicone seal on this. Okay, so take a screw through this. Hole's a little snug. Okay, and through the plastic. Bring the nut up on the inside. Okay, so that's got the first screw located. Hold that steady and do the second screw and keep it parallel. So once I've got all the screws and nuts set by hand, I'll go back through. I have a nut driver that will fit these nuts. You can use that or a pair of pliers, but then you can go ahead and tighten these guys down the rest of the way. Okay, and now all we do is flip the tank over and do the other side. Okay, and that's it. The tank has its handles. Last thing is to install the rod holders, the 2 rod holders that I'm putting on this tank, or if you want to put it on your tank. This is a stock set of rod holders, and we'll get that set up and show you how they go on. So these are the rod holder kit that comes to you in the listing. And the way this goes together is these guys just snap in here. Okay, and then the other rod holder goes on like so. And then they lock into place rotationally as well as side to side. Okay, and so it's going to go on your tank pretty much like that. I like to get it up high. So again, the upper screw holes are going to be up on this ledge up here. The lower screw holes are going to be down here on the face, so they're actually under the water line. Don't have to worry about silicone on the top ones, but I do on the bottom ones. The screws that come with this are too long. They need to be cut down. You can cut them down yourself to 0.92 or 0.93 inches, which is 15/16 of an inch. And then I also add washers that don't come with the kit. These are actually little metric fender washers that happen to fit the number 10 screws. These are 1024 screws. The reason for using these, the ones that they supply you, is these are actually a truss head instead of grounded. So they stick up less into the rod tube, so they won't scratch your rods. You can buy a kit of these from me, or you can cut down the screws that come with the kit. The price on this will be in the description. So what I'm going to do now is get this thing located, get the upper one located, and get the holes drilled, and then we'll get the lower one located, drill those holes, and then we'll silicone this up and then screw it down. So to locate the upper grip, it's a lot easier to do without the rods attached. And what I'm doing is I'm putting it on this ridge above the handle indent and below the upper edge. So I'm trying to center it on that flat area, and then I'm visually centering it side to side, and I kind of like that. And then I'm going to hold it real hard, and I'm going to drill it with the 3/16 bit, drill one side. Okay, didn't walk around on me. I'm going to use, go ahead and put on a screw to hold it in place so everything will stay registered while I drill the other side. So the screw holes are close fit, so I'm not even going to bother with the nut. That holds it close enough. I just want to make sure things stay registered. Okay, and drill the other hole. Okay, so now I'm going to attach the, whoops, screw has to go on the other side. I'm going to put the rod holders back in the upper one. And get that all registered. And this time I'm going to screw it down. Okay, that's got things located. Now we can slip the bottom holder in. Get it in. I noticed that I didn't put the nuts on this yet. Okay, so now this guy's all secured. So now everything's registered, and I can come back in and drill the holes. And again, each time I'm going to go ahead and put the screw in the hole so that everything stays kind of automatically registered as I go. And I guess I have to come in from the bottom here. Okay. Again, I don't need nuts at this point. Just the screws will keep things located where I want them. Make sure the screws come through the hole. All right. Okay, now I know all the holes are where they belong. So I can take this whole thing apart, apply some silicone, and attach it for real. So what I'm going to do is actually apply the silicone on the inside around the washers. I think that'll actually be more effective. So I'm going to go ahead and screw down the bottom ones, applying silicone to the washers while I do it. So now I'm putting the washer on the back side and putting on a nut. So what I'm going to do is just put a glob of silicone on the hole, and then we'll come back around and press a screw through it to get it screwed down. Okay, now I'm going to screw those down with the nut driver and get that in secured. The upper end should be a lot easier.
because we don't really need to mess around with the silicone and all that. So there is a completed bait tank. 2 rod holders, 2 handles, and the inlet and outlet tubes and the strain relief. And so here I'm set up to do the leak test, and it's a good opportunity to show what's inside the tank. So down there on the bottom is the inlet fitting that we installed, and it directs the water one way or the other depending on which way you installed it. Above that are the 2 screws that are holding the strain relief, and then you can see the outlet fitting with its little grate in place as well. I've positioned the outlet tube higher. It goes over a little wall here on my front lawn, so that it gets higher than the tank, so the water won't flow out that way. And I put the inlet tube inside the tank so the water won't flow out that way to the outside world as well. And so now I've made sure everything was dry before I started on the outside so I can detect the leak. And now we'll just fill up the tank above the so I've run the water level up to a couple inches above the outlet fitting, but below the screws that are holding the handles and the screws that are holding the top of the rod holders, because water won't get that high. This is about the maximum depth you'll see in the tank. And what I'm checking here is to see if there's any drips or drops anywhere around the hose fitting or coming off of this side of the tank, and looking around the bottom of the rod holders to make sure there's no drips. So next what I do is I just let this sit here for an hour, and I'll come back out later and see if there's any drops at all on the outside of the tank. So that completes the build instructions. It was a successful build. The information on where to buy the various components and the tools and so forth are down in the description, as is a link in case you want to buy an entirely completely assembled tank. Thanks for watching.